It's time now for a check of the top business news stories. Kate Moody is here. Kate, European governments preparing a response to these new tariffs from Washington.
Yeah, they say they're still optimistic that they can reach common ground, and they say they remain open to negotiations, but if not, they are prepared to hit back. Now, the tariffs are the latest twist in a long-running transatlantic trade dispute. The World Trade Organization had already ruled that each side had given illegal subsidies to plane makers Airbus and Boeing, respectively. On Wednesday, the WTO set a ceiling of $7.5 billion worth of EU goods, which could be targeted by U.S. tariffs. The Trump administration lost little time in doing just that, but Brussels has its own case pending before the WTO and says it will retaliate in kind if necessary.
This is a move that will first and foremost hit US consumers and companies and will make efforts towards a negotiated settlement more complicated. In the parallel Boeing case, the EU will in some months equally be granted rights to impose countermeasures against the United States as a result of its continued failure to comply with WTO rules.
Well, European civilian aircraft and plane parts will be subject to a 10% tariff, while select food, drinks and clothing will be penalized at a higher rate. European producers say they're bracing for impact, as Luke Schrago reports.
From olives to mussels, cheese and wine, all are among European products to be hit with Washington's latest tariffs in 2 weeks' time, greenlit at the World Trade Organization after it said the US could impose them on $7.5 billion worth of goods from the continent. 10% will be slapped on EU aircraft, while 25% goes on everything else, giving producers and exporters a looming headache.
For us, it's a real blow to the head. We produce around 400,000 bottles, and a good 20% of that goes to North America, and in particular, the United States.
Elsewhere, Scotch whisky and clothing from the UK, tools and coffee from Germany, and cheese from across the EU are to be hit. The 25% is still far below the 100% tariffs the US warned it might implement in April. What's more, certain sectors have been spared, such as chocolate, luxury goods like whiskey from Ireland, or French cognac and champagne, and even Italian favourites like tomatoes, wine and olive oil, leaving other countries to bear the brunt.
Only Spain's olive oil exports have been hit with tariffs, and other countries that compete with us, and the United States, have been spared. Olive oil producing countries such as Italy, Greece and Portugal are not taxed.
Many analysts see the specific nature of the tariffs as a means to bring Europe to the negotiating table. However, Europe too is waiting for news from the WTO in a case between Airbus and Boeing widely expected to go in its favour in the months ahead. And that means it's not just European producers that'll pay the price in the meantime, but US importers and their customers as well.
Global stocks are attempting to recover from Wednesday's sell-off. Wall Street creeping back into positive territory despite the ongoing concerns about trade tensions and weak manufacturing in the United States. The Nasdaq outperforming there, up nearly 1 percentage point. The Dow Jones up about 1/3%. It's not, of course, clear how long this bounce will last. A similar picture in Europe, where the CAC 40 managed very slight gains at the close. London's FTSE 100 was still down about 2/3 percentage point. The Frankfurt DAX was closed this Thursday. While British and European lawmakers look through Boris Johnson's latest Brexit proposal, the pound has welcomed the overture. Sterling rose sharply as the UK Prime Minister spoke this afternoon, trading at about $1.23 and just above €1.12. Above all else, investors want to avoid a no-deal Brexit, which would leave companies without a framework for continuing their business. Separately, new data suggests the British economy may have already tipped into recession ahead of the October 31st Brexit deadline. A survey by IHS Markit and CPS showed that the services sector contracted in September. When combined with even weaker figures from the construction and manufacturing industries, the numbers appear to show that the UK economy is indeed shrinking. Uber is trying out a new app that would connect gig economy workers with jobs. The service is currently being tested in Chicago. It provides a platform for cleaners and bar staff, among other jobs, to share information about pay and sign up for shifts. Businesses, meanwhile, can access a pool of qualified available staff. The gig economy has been controversial, with critics saying it reduces workers' rights by restricting their access to healthcare or pension programs. Others say it offers much-needed flexibility. As protests continue in Hong Kong, the local tourism board has cancelled two major events. A cyclothon race and a wine and dine event were hoping to attract some 150,000 people. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. Hong Kong officials say visits are down 40% compared to the same time last year. It's been the city's worst month of August for tourism since the 2003 SARS outbreak. Yana Lee has more.
A drastic slump in tourism to Hong Kong. Visitor numbers dropped 40% in August compared to last year, and they're down by a third in September. Months of sustained anti-government protests are turning tourists away.
We can see that there are fewer tourists coming to and from the airport. People are ordering cars a lot less in bar districts and in tourist areas. It's obvious that business is going down.
Frequent visitors also say they can immediately see the difference.
Before, here on the Avenue of Stars, we couldn't take proper pictures because there'd be so many people. But now look, there's no one. It's such a pity. Hong Kong is such a nice place. What a pity.
The retail sector too has been hit. August sales were the worst on record. Hong Kong authorities say they have a plan to bring back tourists to refuel the economy, but it would depend on the end of the protest movement.
When the time comes back where things settle more peacefully, we of course will relaunch Hong Kong in overseas.
As the crisis between pro-democracy activists and Beijing deepens, mainland Chinese tourists are turning to alternative destinations. 4/5 of Hong Kong tourists are from the mainland. Now thousands of them are flying to Singapore instead. The island state saw a 46% bump in Chinese visitors between June and July.
Another example of the very far-reaching impacts of these ongoing protests.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much indeed, Kate Moody, for this edition of Business. I'll catch you later. That's it from me. I'll be back in 4 minutes with the top stories. Don't go away.